Welcome to KEF Bytes YouTube channel. Today we're going to take a look at a way to use schemes to determine which environment we are running our code in. This comes in very handy when you're making API calls and you have different environments, whether it's production environment, a dev environment, maybe a QA environment. This is something that I use in just about every app that I build. It's very easy to do. So we're going to take a look at how to do that today. Let's get started. So what we need is a scheme for each environment. Now, what I have here that you can see on the screen is a brand new single view project. Haven't touched it, straight out of the box, just as Xcode makes it for us. And you can see that right out of the box, Xcode creates one scheme for us, and the name of it matches the name of our project. In this case, for me, it's YouTube_environment schemes. But I am going to use this as one of my schemes. I'm going to use this as my dev scheme. So I'm just going to change the name of it to dev, and then I'm going to edit it and make sure that the build configuration is debug. That's the important thing here, is we have two different build configurations, a debug and a release. And my dev is going to point to use debug. My prod is going to use release. So the scheme is all set now. And I want to create another scheme. So I'll say new scheme. This one I'm going to call prod. And once I've created it, I'm going to go and edit it and tell it to use release. So now I have two schemes, one for dev, one for prod. The dev is pointing to a debug config. Prod is pointing to a release config. Now that I've done that, we need to add a couple of values to our build settings. So I'm going to go to my build settings. I'm just going to look for utter Swift flags, which is right here. You might have to expand it, just like this. And you'll see there are already two entries here, one for debug and one for release. That relates to that build configuration that we saw. But we can't use it just yet. We have to add a couple values here. So for the value for debug, I'm going to say dash capital D dev. Now the dash and capital D is a prefix that you have to add, and then the dev is the name of my scheme. And I'll do the same thing, release. This would be a dash capital D and then prod. So now I've added my values to the two Swift flags. Should be good enough. Really, that's all there is to it, other than going into our code and programmatically checking which one we're running in so we can set the environment. We're going to do this here in our app delegate. So just go to our did finish launching with options method. Oops, I thought I had that on the clipboard, but I don't. So I'll go ahead and do it here. We don't want that. And here I'm just going to print out whatever environment I'm in. Sorry for you to having to watch me type here. I meant to put this on my clipboard, but for some reason I didn't. And then we'll have else if equal to prod. Nope, don't need the code completion here. Let's just do prod. I'm going to copy this line. Add it here, say prod, and finally I'll just be able to close my if with the end if. Okay, took a second for me to type that out, but now that we're there, we can run it and see this in action. So it'll take a minute to build, and as it does, let's just review the steps. Create a scheme for dev, create a scheme for prod. The dev scheme should build to a debug config, And the release or the prod scheme should point to a release config. And then we added the values to our other Swift flags that were already there. Okay, now that we're running, we can see that I've run it in the prod scheme. And down here in the console, we see that it printed out that we are in prod. Let's go ahead and cancel this. Select dev, run it again. And this time it should print out that we are in fact in dev. Yep, there it is. All right, so everything's good. Again, this is something that I use in just about every app that I work on. It comes in real handy. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll have some sort of session object, and I'll end up doing something like this. And setting it, and then I'll be able to read that in other places of the app if I need to, or whatever I want to do. But again, that's all there is to it. Don't mind the errors. It's just because I don't have my session object in this particular project. Thanks for coming and watching. If you find this helpful, please add a comment or like me on YouTube or something like that. And if you want to help support the creation of more of these videos, I have something you can do here for 99 cents. You can go and download this Barculator app. It's a very silly app. I created it one afternoon, really just as a little test for myself. But it's kind of entertaining, and it's a great way to help support me doing these videos by you just dishing out 99 cents. All right, thanks a lot. Please come back and look for more videos in the future. And until next time, happy coding.